Hey there, welcome to Leadership Portraits. I am here today with Frances Horton. So, Frances is the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Assistance Center that is based in Sandy Springs, Georgia. So, they serve the communities of Sandy Springs and Dunwoody. And if you're not in Georgia, so Sandy Springs and Dunwoody are both suburbs right outside of Atlanta. So, what they do as part of the Community Assistance Center is they provide financial assistance, they provide food pantries, thrift stores, adult education, career centers, lots of different services for both of those communities to help fight hunger and poverty in those communities and to help promote self-sufficiency. So I'm really excited about the conversation today with Frances and talk about that and really talk about the good work that service is doing for the community. So welcome, Frances, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate the opportunity to sit with you and chat for a little bit.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm always fascinated with these conversations when we talk about nonprofits and service projects and things that we're doing out in the community. So I gave a little bit of an introduction, but I'm always I know I don't always do a service. So could you tell us a little bit more about the Community Assistance Center and what you're actually doing out in the community?
Certainly be glad to. We were started in 1987 by a group of congregations in the Sandy Springs, Dunwoody area who just kind of looked out around them and saw a number of needs among the community and said somebody needs to step up and try to meet some of these needs. And so formed the nucleus of CAC. And we are at our core, we are a crisis response organization. So people come into dire straits of some sort or another in life, loss of job, health issue, those kinds of things that kind of tends to cripple a lot of families that don't have a lot of margin. Then they can come to us for help. And for us, that help consists of, as you mentioned, we do some financial assistance, which means help with rent, utilities on a limited basis. And we'd have 3 food pantries that we operate, 2 in Sandy Springs, 1 over in Dunwoody, to help fight food insecurity, which is amazing that in our area, in this time, in this period of history, that we have to have 3 food pantries to fight food insecurity. But there are a number of folks out there. In fact, the Atlanta Community Food Bank tells us that about 1 in 6 or 7 people in North Georgia are food insecure, which blows my mind, you know.
Yeah.
So we do have those food pantries. They're all client choice food pantries, which means we've got shopping carts and people come in and shop just like if they go to a grocery store somewhere. And that helps to maintain dignity and respect of our clients, and they get to choose what they need. And then we also have a career center that we started about 2 years ago to help folks not just get a job, but try to plug into a career path that can push their families toward that self-sufficiency you mentioned, toward that financial stability. We operate a thrift store that's open to the public. Love for everybody to come out and shop at our thrift store. Every dollar we make there goes back into our other programming. And we give clients vouchers for the thrift store. They can come in and buy what they need to, a certain dollar amount per family member. Then we also have adult education. We teach a lot of English. We have 6 different levels of English. And then we teach some computer courses, Microsoft Office suite sorts of things. And then we have also a financial management course that we call My Financial Goals. In that program, there's 13 to 14 different language groups or ethnic groups that are represented in there. So it's quite a mix of people that attend our English classes in particular. That's our largest segment of adult education. And we have a number of programs, Jennifer, that we also do during the year, different periods of the year. We call them seasonal programs. We do summer lunches for those kids that get free lunch at school. When school's out, they don't have lunch. So we provide that during the summer. We do backpacks full of school supplies late July. We just finished this past weekend a distribution for coats for kids for the wintertime. which judging from this morning, it's just in time. Like the cool air is coming in. And then toward the end of the year, around the Christmas season, we'll have what we call Hope for the Holidays, which is similar to an angel tree type of project, where last year we were able to provide 1,540 children with some kind of gifts for Christmas. So a little bit of joy, Jennifer, particularly at that time of year. So that's kind of what we do. It's a mouthful, and we've been doing it for a long time, and have an incredible staff that keeps everything running. But we also use 450 volunteers a month, which kind of drives us. So it's really community assistance center really is a community.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're maybe seeing right now in the community. What are has anything changed recently? Is there anything that's kind of driving the need out there right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have seen over the past 18 months, 2 years, a change in our clientele, that profile. Quite honestly, as we looked over the past 3 years, actually, school enrollment in this general area has been going down. And one of the primary reasons is because people can't afford to live here.
Mhm.
And so when they move out, they take their kids with them, you know. Uh, Reason would tell you that that's our client pool. You know, those are folks that we would be helping. And so if those numbers are going down, ours should be too. Last year, overall, our programming and all of those things I just mentioned to you, we were up 34% number of clients. So those don't quite jive until we realize that 2/3 of the people coming to us for help have full-time jobs. So this is the working poor that we're helping now. And that's a little bit different than it was 4, 5, 6 years ago, you know. And so what's happened, I think, is that the economy has just caught up with people. As prices go up, they very seldom come down. And when they stay up for long enough, margin gets wiped out. Favors from friends and families get used up, and people come knocking at our door. So I think that's generally what we're seeing as changes out there. And it's manifesting itself particularly in the area of food insecurity. Many times a family that has difficulty making ends meet during the month, food is one of the first things to go. They cut back on meals. They cut back on amount of food for each meal and that kind of stuff. So last year honestly, we had a 48% increase in people visiting our food pantries, which just
Yeah.
is, yeah. And at the same time, we had a 10% increase in the food that got donated to us, the food supply that we had available, you know. 10% didn't quite meet the 48% increase in number of folks coming to access that food. So it's really been a bit of a lean time in our food pantries and trying to keep the shelves stocked these days. So yeah, so those are the primary changes we've seen. But we still are in the business of helping people stay in homes as well. And last year we helped prevent 962 evictions, and those are families that got to stay in their home. You know, the rents have stopped going up as much as they did the last year or so. But again, they're still up there.
Yeah.
And at some point in the month, we have a lot of families in our area that have to make a decision of whether to pay rent or buy food.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a tough decision
It really is.
to have to make. And how do you make sure that the community is aware of that you're there and what services you have to provide?
That's a good question as well, Jennifer. The one thing, we've been around since 1987, and so there's a lot of word of mouth, particularly among our client base. They find us through a neighbor, through someone else that lives in their apartment complex. And so that's probably the primary way that clients find us. Others find us by word of mouth, but also through those congregations. There were 5 that started us. Now we have 28 congregational partners. So a lot of our volunteer base comes out of those congregations, and as well as, you know, our part of our donor base, and those congregations are a real conduit for us for both going and coming, for word going out about us, but also for resources coming back in. And then we do 3 newsletters a month that goes out to different groups of people. We do various advertisements around with the chambers and some others that help to get the word out as well.
So you mentioned supplies are becoming harder to get, and costs are going up, and they're going up for the people you're helping, but I imagine they're going up for you as well. So how do you stay on top of that? Because I imagine it gets harder. I'm sure that you have ways of getting, bulk and things like that, but how do you stay on top of that? Because the dollar can only go so far.
Well, that's true. And we get donations in a couple of different ways for our thrift store and most of the food in our pantries. There are in-kind donations. People give clothes and furniture and those kinds of things and food. And so that comes as in-kind. And then we have dollars. If you're going to help somebody with rent, you got to have money in the bank to do that.
Yeah.
So far, we have an incredibly faithful donor base that's made up of mostly Sandy Springs and Dunwoody folk that believe in what we're doing, that want to be a part of it, want to give back something to community and help their neighbor. And so they've been incredibly faithful in that. At the same time, like our financial assistance, we're up 32%
Mm.
in providing that this year. And we're already up to 679 evictions that we've helped prevent through August. So we're looking at 1,000 evictions, and
Wow.
that takes money. And so we're always looking for new donors and that kind of stuff, pounding the pavement, doing those things, but also trying to tap in, Jennifer, to the business community in our area. That, I just think that they ought to have an opportunity to participate with us as well, and giving them those chances to do that. And they've been incredibly faithful in sending volunteers our way, groups of volunteers, a department of com or certain division of com, and helping with volunteer needs, which, by the way, so far, or through August of this year, we've got volunteers that have given us 34,000 hours of
Wow.
work, right?
That's
That
incredible.
really is. That really is. And so that, without the volunteers, we could not do what we do. And so we've got a lot of faithful volunteers out there that continue to help us. But we are continually looking at resources and how we can stretch those,
Yeah.
because my electricity bill is more just like yours is. And we're buying more food for our pantries than we ever have before because our donation supply is less than it has been before and not keeping up with the demand that's out there. And by the way, that's not just us, it's across the country.
Yeah.
About every 2 weeks or so, I'll read about a food pantry that closed somewhere
Oh, yeah.
because of supply issues, and it's not as much that the supply is not there, it's more that demand has increased so much that the supply can't keep up. So, but we've got grocery stores in our area that donate to us every week, and we've got people that drop off cans and bags full of food, and people that do food drives for us. And so we keep putting out what we have and providing to our clients as we can. So
So do you find that when you have, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, we just recently had Hurricane Helene. And we've got, the other one, the next one that's coming into Florida here soon. So there's even a more desperate need in some areas of the country than there was before. When you find in times like this, when there is a need like that, maybe in another area of the country, or um, maybe even somewhere close, do you find that you get impacted by that because the people are maybe like redirecting their support to other things?
that's a good question that we don't really know the answer to yet as far as Helene goes. Uh, we'll talk again in a month or so. We'll have
Right?
a better answer on that. Uh, For our in-kind donations, it won't impact it very much, I don't think,
Good, good.
because our primary vendors, the Atlanta Community Food Bank and Midwest Food Bank, they service pantries like ours. It's their
Mm,
business. And so they are, 80% of our food supply comes from them. So that should not be affected. Some of our donors might look other places and try to help folks that are more immediately in need. Um, and that's completely understandable. Last week I was down in Statesboro, Georgia, helping with some Helene relief down there, pulling trees off of houses and putting tarps on houses and those kinds of things. And we've got folks down there that are still without power, still without water, and so they need a little extra push at this time, and we want them to get it. So
yeah,
we certainly don't think badly of that, of
right.
that help going down there because they desperately need it. As I said, CAC is at its core a crisis response organization as well. So
Yeah,
we understand meeting people where they are and trying to fill the needs that are there.
yeah. So I want to talk about just spend a couple minutes kind of talking about you. So you've spent quite a bit of time of your career doing crisis response and a lot of service work. So you've worked all around the globe, doing missions and disaster response. And so tell us a little bit about that. What sort of prompted you to take that path as opposed to, where someone may have, gone a corporate path or something like that?
Yeah, well, I I'm a lawyer by training, and so I practiced law for the first 10 years of professional life with the Department of Justice down in Mississippi, which is where I'm from. My wife and I are both from Mississippi. And I was having a blast, quite honest, Jennifer. I was in court 3 days a week and just had a good time. But somewhere along the way, around 1994 or so, my wife and I both just sensed that there was something a little bit larger out there for us to do as a couple and as a family. We had kids by then, and uh, and God just took us overseas. He directed us that that's where we need to go and do the things that we ended up doing there, and so we did. In 1995, we went to South Asia, started in Pakistan, and did some work there doing community development types of work, which includes a lot of different things. Started my disaster response career there, and we had a we owned a fish farm down near the coast of the Indian Ocean, and cyclone came through, and we helped the village put some roofs back on their huts,
Um,
and that was the beginning of my disaster response life. Um, Ended up being area director for Baptist Global Response or International Relief and Development. Did a lot of community development as well as disaster response. I was just thinking the other day, I think the only disaster my wife and I have not responded to is a volcano.
oh, well.
But about anything else you can think of, we've been at one or the other, and in a lot of different places. We've been mightily blessed to work in 16 or 17 different countries, having projects in those countries, helping people that need help. I'll never forget one day up in the mountains of Pakistan after the earthquake in 2005. The I walked into a house that had been decimated by the earthquake, and there was one piece of furniture sitting right in the middle of what used to be the house. And as I walked in, I looked at it, and it's old and water damaged, and stuff had fallen on it, and it was just, and somebody was with me, and I said, "This is no good. We just need to throw it away." And I walked around the edge of it, and there was a little girl about 8 or 9 years old, squatting down on the other side of that piece of furniture, and she had an old dirty rag, and she was just wiping it down, cleaning it
Oh,
up. And I thought, see, what I thought was a
hmm.
piece of trash. We need to toss that out. This is probably the only thing she's got left,
Yeah.
you know? So that to me, that reminded me, that people in different circumstances and are different sets of activities and happenings, and we can't assume something is one thing when it's totally something else for somebody else. And one of the things that I think I learned overseas, honestly, people are people. And uh, there's a several moms this morning woke up in Atlanta, and their primary concerns were getting the kids to school, get them a good education, whether or not they were going to be safe going to and from school, and whether or not there's going to be food on the table when they got home from school. There were several moms that woke up in Bangladesh this morning in bamboo huts. They had the same concerns.
Right.
So the needs are the same. They look a little different, come clothed a little different, in a little different language. But people are people. And so we spent about 20 years overseas meeting a bunch of different kinds of needs and are trying to different kinds of circumstances. Came back in 2015 to the U.S. We raised our 4 kids overseas. Came back in 2015. I went to work for Samaritan's Purse in Boone, North Carolina, as a regional director for West Africa, and spent some time in West Africa working primarily among internally displaced people and doing a lot of feeding, a lot of provision of household goods, and had I don't know if it's fortune or misfortune of being part of setting up a couple of Ebola treatment centers while I was over there in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And what an incredible experience of helping people in truly, truly desperate situations. Then around 2020, I came down to the Atlanta area. It was really quite interesting because I was had a contract with another organization, and that was coming to an end. And so I started looking around and saw CAC's website. And I told my wife, I said, these guys look like they're giving appropriate help in appropriate ways. They wouldn't be bad to work for, you know? And I guess it was 3 weeks later, I looked at their website again, and there's an article about my predecessor retiring. And the
Oh,
last line of that article said, if you want to submit a resume, click here. And I clicked, and so I'm sitting in the chair today. So again, I think it's as I look back from those law practice days and all the way through, I mean, it's just been God directed, and God's provided along the way. So
so you answered my next question. My next question was going to be about, what kind of brought you to the CAC. Um, so, you never know how, and you can think it was, it was a coincidence or it was divine intervention or whatever brought you to take a look at that site that day, that kind of brought you there. So that's fascinating.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think as I look back, over really all of life, I can see where guidance has come,
Right.
direction has been pointed out, and we've been pulled one way or the other, and to where we are today. So,
Yeah. It must be a very rewarding thing to be able to see and be in the community of the people that you're like really helping, and to be able to see the impact of that.
uh, I guess it was about a month ago now. A lady walked into our office, and she was having a hard time. Obviously, that's why she was here. People don't come to our office unless they're having a hard time. So she came in and she needed a little bit of help with rent. We were able to do that for her. And she turned around and walked out. We have 2 volunteers that man our reception desk in our building, and one of them's been there about 15 years. She's there every day. And as this lady turned to go out the door, she turned and looked back at the volunteers, and she said, "Thank you." She said, "I've been to several organizations looking for help, and this is the first place I've been treated like a person."
Wow.
And so that everything we do, we try to make sure that we keep in mind that just because somebody's going through a hard time,
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not a person due respect and
Right.
dignity. And so that's why our pantry is client choice. That's why if you walk into our thrift store, it doesn't feel like or look like a lot of thrift stores. It looks more like a boutique,
Yeah.
uh, because of that factor of trying to maintain that dignity and respect of our clients. and giving them a little bit of a push.
Right.
Most of them, all they need is a little push over the hump, and they can go. In fact, one of the things we do, Jennifer, to measure our impact is that 60, 90, and 180 days after someone receives help from us, we call them and say, how are you doing? How are things shaping up for you? What is that crisis resolved? How's your housing situation? That kind of stuff. And what we found so far this year through June is that about 89% of the people we helped have been able to stabilize their housing situation. And about 80% of them have totally resolved whatever crisis brought them to us. Um, I tell our staff that, we do a lot of different things, have a lot of activities going on, but at the end of the day, we're in the business of hope. If somebody walks into our office and they walk back out with hope that tomorrow's going to be a little bit better than today, that's a win for that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk to a lot of people who are in job transition or they're in some kind of life transition. And one of the things that I'm discovering is when you have when you have these conversations with real people and kind of stop listening to like the talking heads and like really have the conversations with the real people, you really get the sense of what's really happening in the communities. And because I talk to people, they're like, I know they're telling me that lots of jobs are being created. I'm not seeing that. Or, just different things like that. So it's so interesting when you really have that one-to-one connection with people, what you can really see.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we have a career center where we use a model that with folks we call career advocates. They're basically coaches. And so we connect a career advocate with a client, and that relationship lasts as long as it needs to. Maybe just sprucing up a resume, maybe all the way through finding that career path and then learning how to keep it, you know. In that process, we did our first job fair, if you will, about 2 years ago.
Nice.
We had it here at our property. We had Children's Healthcare of Atlanta came, and they were the employer, the only one we had. We had about 60 clients come. And what Choa told us afterwards was that 90% of the people that walked in the door were absolutely employable.
Wow.
80% of them would have never made it through their recruitment process
Ah,
because there was some kind of quirk in their resume, some gap, some that looked weird, you know. But when they were in the same room together and they had that one-on-one connection that you just mentioned, then all of a sudden they become a potential employee, you know,
right.
and those gaps can be explained, those quirks can be talked about, and they ended up hiring 20 of those people. Since then, we've had 4 career expos in partnership with the 2 cities, Dunwoody and Sandy Springs, and the corresponding chambers, which now are one since they've combined here recently. The last one we had was in Sandy Springs and about 3 weeks ago at the Performing Arts Center. And we had 24 employers and 310 job seekers came to it. And there were people hired on the spot. There were people that had interviews on the spot. There were a lot of interviews set for the next day or two. But it's that one-on-one connection that you talked about. And if you get people in the room talking to each other, not on their phones, not on chat, not on X, not on but talking face to
Right.
face, then reality becomes reality. And, you can begin to understand where somebody stands, who they
Yeah.
are, and what they are, and why they are.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in what you're doing with the center or just in the community in general?
Well, One of the big challenges that we see right now for us, for CAC, is food supply. Our shelves are thin, which they always are during the summer months because various factors go into that, but that's historical. This year was a little more than normal. So we've tried to do some extra things. We've had to buy more food than we ever had before to try and keep those shelves stocked. But it's a continual fight to make sure that we have an adequate supply of food in our pantries for the increased demand on that supply. So that's one of our challenges. And gosh, Jennifer, we're a nonprofit. One of our challenges is money,
Yeah.
you know, and just resources that we need. We have a great base of volunteers as well, but we always need more volunteers. I was just looking at a list right before we connected this afternoon about there's about 8 volunteers we need right now,
Mm,
to do specific tasks, right?
yeah.
So there's volunteer needs as well. Uh, but in our community, one of the challenges that our clients find is purely housing, and that is finding a place that they can afford to pay the rent and still feed their family. What we've seen over the past couple of years is that rents have continued to go up. That rise has slowed a little bit now, but there's once they go up, the landlord doesn't say, "Oh, the economy's better. I'm going to
Hmm.
reduce your rent." You know, uh, Another thing that's happened um, in our area is that coming out of the pandemic, a lot of investment companies came in and bought up properties in this area.
Yeah.
And where we used to be able to call up the apartment manager and say, "Hey, Miss Smith's having a hard time. We're going to give her rent for this month. She'll be able to pay next month if you'll divide it in two and give her a payment plan on it." You know, and they were most of the time were agreeable to it. We can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because the people that are on site usually don't have authority to make decisions and things like that, and so it makes it more difficult for those kinds of arrangements to be made, and the rents going up. So that's a real challenge in our area. Now there's a lot of dynamics in that. There's a lot of discussion about affordable housing, whatever that means, and all of those kinds of things. But it's a very real problem for the folks we see every day. Is just keeping a roof over the head of their families.
Yeah. So you mentioned volunteers. So if you have someone, of course, if you're in Sandy Springs or Dunwoody or really anywhere in the metro Atlanta area, um, how would someone who's interested in spending some time to help, how would someone go about doing that?
One of the easiest ways is to go on our website, www.ourcac.org. Uh, Under volunteers, there's a sign up genius that you can sign up for volunteer slots in our thrift store and in our food pantries. That's maybe the easiest way to do it. Another way is to use that volunteer at ourcac.org email address. Drop us a note, say, "Hey, I got 3 folks that we want to come volunteer in the month of December, or whatever," and we'll get back in touch with you, and we'll try to set up a time for you to come and fit your skills to what we need as well. And then we also have, as I mentioned earlier, those seasonal programs. Those are more project-based volunteers. So uh, Jennifer, I don't know if you've ever tried to sort and pack 1,542 children's worth of toys, but
I
that
have not.
that's a job, and it takes a
Can
number of
imagine.
volunteers to do that. And so
Yeah.
we use volunteers in those kinds of things as well. And that's a one-off kind of, one time a year sort of volunteer experience to come and help us sort through those things and then distribute them as well to those families. So there's a number of opportunities that we have. All of them are listed on our website, as well as contacting that volunteer email address can do that.
So what about if someone wants to provide financial support? How would they go about doing that?
Well, there's a number of ways to do that as well. Again, the easiest way is there's a big old donate button on our
Okay.
website. And if you click that, that gives you a couple of different opportunities. You can just give to our what we call our annual fund, which is unrestricted, use as most needed fund. And then there are ways you can restrict that as well if you want to food or to rental assistance or to whatever. Uh, and I would love for people to come and let me give them a tour of what we do as
Oh
well.
yeah.
So anybody out there that wants to come and take a look at our food pantry or our thrift store and see what we do and let's talk about why we do it. I am more than happy to do that. They can get in touch with me and I'll set up a VIP tour for them.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend anyone in the area go check out the thrift store because it's pretty cool.
It
Yeah.
is. We do. We really take great pains in curating our
Mm.
stock, and probably right now, probably 40% of what actually gets donated makes it to the showroom floor. The
Nice.
other 60% we give to three other nonprofits that use it in various ways. But so none of it goes to
Oh,
waste. None of it gets
nice.
thrown away. But we, again, dignity and respect demands that we put only the best stuff out on
Hmm.
the floor for sale. Uh, and by the way, it's the third Friday of every month. Sorry, this month has already gone, but third Friday of every month is Fabulous Friday. Everything's on sale, so that's a great time to come out and
Oh, cool.
experience the thrift store. For we recently rebranded that store as well to be Canopy Thrift. We want to convey the idea that it's a place where everybody can come and feel safe and be welcomed. You can come and find community, and if you come on Thursday, you'll see pretty much the same set of volunteers there that were there last Thursday, and the same for Wednesday and Tuesday and every other day of the week. And so you can get to know people in
Yeah,
there as well, which is one of the things our clients really like. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation. I appreciate you coming and sharing this important information about what you're doing in the community and how you're helping. And there is such a need out there right now. So if anyone wants to volunteer, anyone wants to provide any kind of financial support, I'll have all of those links will be on the show notes for the podcast. And so any oh, I did want to ask you, I forgot. You talked about your seasonal events. So you've probably got some seasonal events coming up, right?
we do for our client-based events. We have two things coming up the rest of the year. One I mentioned already, our Hope for the Holidays, Christmas gifts for
Mhm.
kids. We also do food boxes at Thanksgiving time.
Okay.
But in a couple of weeks, we've got our gala coming up, the 26th of October.
Okay.
Um, it's going to be at the Performing Arts Center in Sandy Springs and with a theme Under the Big Top. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some cool stuff going on. It can be silent auction. It's going to be a live auction. Got raffle tickets as well that are on sale. And there's going to be some great trips that are available in those raffle times. So uh, again, that's on the website as well under Gala 2024, and you find out all the details there about that.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that out there. So before we wrap up, any kind of last minute or last thoughts or messages that you want to put out there?
Well, I mean, it takes community to help community. None of us can do it by ourselves. CAC can't do it all alone. It takes the cities who partner with us very, very well. It takes the business community. It takes the private community. It takes congregations who are partners as well. We all have to come together to lift those folks up that may be experiencing a little bit of a weaker time and understanding that we all go through that from time to time.
Right.
But it's up to us really to do the things that help to activate hope and expand opportunities for the folks around us.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's such an important message. So I appreciate you and everything you're doing for the community. It's so important. I think right now, especially, I know there's a lot of people that are really struggling. And like you said, once prices go up, they rarely come down. Once rent goes up, it doesn't come down. So it's, there's just a lot of people out there that's trying to is trying to make it. Yeah.
That's right. And I was amazed when I started looking at Sandy Springs and Dunwoody that to find out there are approximately 20,000 people that live below the poverty line in these two cities.
Wow.
So that blows my brain as well.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And for those listeners on the podcast, all the information is available in the show notes, so check those out. Be sure to check out the websites. And do what you can. If you can volunteer, if you can give, it is very much needed, very much appreciated. So thank you, Francis, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some great insights from this video. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you would like your own Leadership Portraits profile, check us out at leadershipportraits.com.